Hey, checking in again with Anthony Trollope and Miss Mackenzie, his 1865 novel. This is chapters 3 to 10. So Miss Mackenzie, a old widow at 30 something who has spent most of her life nursing, most of her adult life nursing first her dying father and then sickly brother, was then given a whole ton of money, inherited her brother's wealth. The other brother getting kind of cut off because he went into the trades and is not even has had the decency with his partner Samuel Rubb Jr. to actually be successful at his business. Um, so he's not even successfully money grubbing. Um, so she's gotten all this money. She's gone off to Little Bath, basically Bath, Somerset Bath, to enjoy herself, taking with her a niece of the money grubbing, the Tom Mackenzie, uh, and um, and has gotten kind of introduced to the politics of the area, the sets, the one set being Mr. Slocum and Mrs. Slocum, who are evangelicals, and the other side being is it Mrs. Todd? I think it's Mrs. Todd, or Mrs. Todd the friend. But the other side being kind of the card playing, theater going kind of that set. And in this section, she gets asked for a loan from her brother, which she provides for about, I think it's £2,000, which isn't a £2,500, something like that, which isn't a small amount, but is something that she can kind of afford to do. And she actually figures that what they're going to do is, because they're going to get tossed out of the property that they've been renting, that they're going to buy it, and that they'll pay her interest on that loan, and that'll actually bump her thing up by like another 50, 20, 50, 25 pounds or something like that, or thing. So it's actually, she figures it might be good. Her lawyer her lawyer kind of mentions, well, we still actually need to get the mortgage done properly, the security, basically security on this loan, but they're being kind of slow about it. If it was any other business thing, I'd say you wait for that to happen, but you might want to react differently. And by this point, I think she's met Samuel Rubb Jr. I think that Tom had gone in with his father, Samuel Rubb Sr., but she's met Samuel Rubb Jr., who is a tall, good-looking, kind of very kind of avuncular kind of guy, around her age. And she's like, no, I think I'll, go ahead. It's my brother, and you can't do anything, can't be holding up stuff for family and stuff like that. Um, However, throughout the things of this, by the end, the lawyer comes to her and says, well, turns out they've already mortgaged this before, so there is no security to be had. They are in dire financial straits. This is basically fraud. But by this point, she's actually kind of developed a fair amount of a relationship with Samuel Rubb Jr. It's like she's really, really quite is fond of him. They've got a bond. So she actually kind of writes back to him and kind of lies to him, says, "Oh no, I'm aware of that. I've talked to them." And actually, she hasn't really talked to them, and she definitely hasn't talked to her brother about it, who's going to be rather shocked that his business partner has done this. And she actually finds in the kind of defending him that it's sort of slightly more driving her into his arms. Of like, oh, is this somebody I actually might be interested in a romantic sense, which is like all your alarm bells should be going off. And indeed, a friend of hers who meets him immediately spots him as not a gentleman and maybe not someone to trust. which is interesting that immediately that they spotted that. Um, she is definitely someone who, because she's been so isolated, so nursing first the father and then the brother, she's not been out. She is um, pretty naive that way. While she's rather smart other ways, she's rather naive that way with men. Now, in this, the concurrent thing that happens in this is there's another so-called suitor, which are the balls, which is kind of the wealthy other half of the family, which kind of had a bit of the split off from their father, who inherited money, and she goes to them and she meets them, and they have a grandson, John, who is about her age and is looking for a wife, and indeed they are they are hard up for money. He's already had a wife and had many kids and is looking for a wealthy woman to marry, and he kind of puts a case to her, and they hang out over the holidays, and he's kind of getting closer and closer, and he puts it to her of a kind of a proposition, and she's like, it's like, basically, in the end, she does say, well, I like you well enough, but I really don't feel anything of kind of a love towards you that a woman might perhaps should feel. um and perhaps she would have gotten talked over, but his grandmother decides to corner Miss Mcknz, and tries to put the screws in, saying, like, basically, well, that money that you have inherited should really have gone to our side of the family, and if things had gone correctly, and basically says, like, you owe it to us, and that, like, you should, there's no reason that you could ever turn down John, because you'll be able to become a baronet. And it's like, she's like, a baronet with a crappy carriage, threadbare, kind of rotten house, and obviously all this money and stuff like that. Um, so she's like, really, no, now, and indeed that does cut it off. And she and lady is it Ball, writes some haughty letters to her, but it, yeah, does not go anywhere, and seems to have completely buggered things up. And the worst thing that could have happened is to have his grandmother going all high and mighty in his favor, because it's completely driven her off. And indeed, this is at which point where she finds out about Samuel Rubb Jr.'s peripheries, with the money, which in a strange way, I think, as Trollope says, it's like, well, it's like doing something like this and kind of admitting it is has attracts her more to him than if he'd done, like, kind of like little small indiscretions, which would have kind of really put her back up. Like, this was like, walking off with a good hunk of cash, strangely enough, is like is the kind of transgression that she's all too eager to forgive him for. Yes, and we've gotten also in a lot of this, a lot more of the evangelicals, where the Mr. Slocum is all very kind of jolly and that, but the his wife is basically the tyrant of the set, and if you don't do proper obeisance to her and say how perfect and wonderful she is, you get on her bad side. And indeed, Miss Mcknz, who has a bit of spine to her, does get on the bad side of her, and so things are a little bit alienated there, and you can see that maybe the right kind of push pull, she might actually kind of go off and actually maybe hopefully just have some harmless fun, not be ruined or anything like that. But yes, she is a woman who is not young, but it's not freaking ancient. But is been basically kind of treated as, oh, here's a big piggy bank, for us to perhaps pluck. And you're kind of hoping that she will find somebody who might actually kind of be interested in her for her own sake. I think the big attraction of Samuel Rubb is that he is actually kind of able to talk to her fairly civilly. Um, I mean, even John Bell, when he was talking to her, was it was he was talking to her. He mostly talked to her about money, about her money, and how she should be careful with it, which seems can't help but seem a little bit proprietary of like, oh, this could be my money at some point, so you should be careful with it. Um, but yeah. So I'm developing fondness for Miss Mcknz as she's kind of traversing this